Millions of dollars.
I lose them so much, I quit spending good money.
Call this meeting to order. We will start with the pledge to the flag.
Yeah.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Scott.
Here.
Petro.
Here.
Sikowitz.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Nagy.
Here.
Gesnicki.
Here.
Here.
Correspondence. I don't believe we have any.
We do not.
Seeing none, additions to business.
Mr. President, you have two items in front of you. One is a recommendation from the South Commerce Pathway Committee, which could be 12N. And then you have Oakland County Hazard Mitigation Plan Resolution, which could be 12O.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda with those two additions?
So moved.
Support.
Motion Nagy, second Sinkowitz. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Call to the public. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on agenda items. Mr. Malik.
Bob Malik, 1620 Thurston. My question is, under your approval of consent agenda items, you have the Zoning Board of Appeals from 11/19, and I'm on that board, and the reason I'm questioning here, I'd like to know what it would take for the council to have the Planning Commission re-review our sign ordinances. We just okayed a change in the zoning last meeting, which I personally wasn't in favor of, which is neither here or there because the fact it did go with a majority. But I think you might have the minutes from that where we've allowed a flashing sign in the village.
Wait, so Bob, which item are you talking about here?
Well, it's under your written and file written reports. Zoning Board of
okay,
Appeals,
got it.
In the minutes.
Got it.
Okay, I don't know if anybody's read them or not.
I did.
But
Yes.
I would like to see if there's a possibility in your discussion somewhere here to maybe send that back to the Planning Commission to either keep it the way it is and enforce it, or make changes in it. Because, we set a precedent with what the people that voted it for it. And I, like I said, personally not in favor of it, but that's my choice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do a comment on that or not?
Well, why don't you hold off till we're done with call to the public. Anybody else in call to the public? Seeing none, I will close the call to the public. Did you have a comment on that?
I
before
just
we
wanted
go?
to follow up on what Mr. Malik said. I was also at the ZBA, and I didn't approve the sign. It was for the credit union down here, the flashing light, because our ordinance says we can't have any flashing lights.
I believe that's correct.
All right, any light signs like that, and it was approved by a majority, but I just, whether or not we need to look at it, as Bob says, any further, because if once we start that, I don't know if it's gonna be a trend or whatever, okay, but I did just something, I'm just in supporting with Mr. Malik, that maybe we need to look at it.
In the minutes,
Let me go actually to our police captain for a second.
There may be something along the state law that also addresses that, flashing or oscillating
lights within a certain distance of a roadway. I don't know exactly where the sign, or what particularly you're talking about.
What they were doing, this, Captain,
Gee, thank
the
you.
sign at the credit union there, what they want to do, put a 1 foot high by however long, like a sign that would light up and rotate and put a message out there, for low interest rate loans, et cetera,
That might be,
et cetera.
that may be something different, but, and I think that is different than what I was envisioning, the flashing light. But as far as a sign with words and things like that, that might not be addressed. Actually, if you look 500 feet to the east, you'll see that the school has one
Yeah.
similar to that. So as long as that's not flashing or oscillating, I don't think that that's going to be an issue.
It's rolling.
according to the minutes, it was approved with the following conditions that include no flash.
It's not flashing.
So it's not
Yeah,
flashing.
not flashing.
The words.
The words will just keep
Scroll.
scrolling from, we said left to right.
Scrolling was approved, flashing was not.
Yeah.
There's a distinction there.
Well, we have next on our agenda, approval of consent agenda. Do we want to remove zoning board of appeals minutes of 11/19/13 to discuss this briefly?
I mean, if that's what it takes to put a motion back to the planning commission to relook at the sign, is that the proper way to do it?
That would put it on our agenda. We could have a discussion of what we found in that report.
But could we get in front of this approval, or no?
That approval, I think, has been approved. I mean, it's.
That's what I'm thinking. So I mean, so approving, I mean, stopping the minutes, I don't see where that.
We could continue this discussion, but all I'm saying is we can have this discussion, but to do this, next on our list of agenda, next on our agenda is approval of consent agenda. Let's just remove the ZBA report and then we can have this discussion.
Fair enough.
I don't want to go down into this discussion unless we're at it as an agenda item. That's all I'm saying.
A motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of removing the CBA minutes.
I second.
So, motion Nedrow, second Kesnecki. Further discussion?
I didn't have to, want the ZBA.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes.
Item 12. Pete?
Yep, so that brings us to item 9, ZBA minutes of 11/19/13. Well, actually, I'm looking at 9/17/13, okay?
That's the wrong date on the top of the minutes.
So the date on the minutes is incorrect, but
Yes.
those are the minutes of the November.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, sorry, that was procedural to get us to where the discussion was going, but, so do we want to have planning take a look at this, at the sign ordinance? And Brian, at this point, I think
I guess I would say we could go back and look at it. I mean, it's not a big thing. We can put it on the new business agenda.
all right.
Look at what we have in the books and include the minutes in our packet. And that way we can
Look at it, decide if what we have still makes sense, and
yep.
If we want to tighten it at all or whatever, I don't know. I'd say it was a majority vote that passed it, but there were some objections to it in the audience as well as on the ZBA, so I think that's why Mr. Malik would like us to look at it, and I think it's a good idea. Just to, if nothing more than to tighten it up a little bit, just so it doesn't get out of hand, shall we say.
do I hear a motion to send the issue of the sign ordinance to the planning commission?
Yes, I make that motion to send that sign orders back to the planning commission for review.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
So motion Nagy, second Kesnecki. Further discussion?
Okay, so I just want to make sure everyone understands that planning commission's going to look at the ordinance, but that doesn't change the decision of the
Correct.
ZBA.
That's true.
Right.
Okay,
Sure.
just want to make
Yep.
sure. Okay.
ZBA has decided that.
Yep.
Can't change the ZBA said.
Yep.
Okay.
However, could change future
Yes.
decisions.
Yep.
And might very well in some areas find that sort of sign is appropriate. I mean, electric sign standards and things that have happened have changed.
Well,
since
the
we
nice
did
thing
that
about
sign
them
ordinance.
is that it's a small sign. Well, if somebody wanted to put up like a billboard type sign or bigger, I think that's more intrusive. Now, strobe lights and all that stuff's a different story, but the one that just repeats the message seems to be more tasteful than the other two options, but
Fairly
we'll see what
non-specific.
happens.
We'll see what planning has to say. Okay, further discussion of that motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, no public hearings tonight. That brings us to item 12A, presentation of service awards for Todd Smalley.
Mr. Smalley was not able to attend tonight, but this is his plaque for 5 years of service. And I will make sure he gets it tomorrow.
Todd's been a great hire in the DPW. It's hard to believe it's 5 years already. Okay. Item 12B, pay request from HG Starter in the amount of $59.25.15. Do I hear a motion? Do we want to hear discussion from our engineer first?
Let's hear a discussion.
Let's hear discussion from our engineer first.
Council, this is just the restoration over the culvert on Wolverine Drive. That culvert was removed and a new one put in. And if any of you got over there, see that, you'll be very, very thankful because the old culvert is actually dilapidated and all rusted out and the whole thing is ready to collapse. So it's time to do that. I apologize, you're absolutely correct.
We're still in beta testing here.
Yes, that's correct. So the contractor went in and replaced the culvert, but we did not include the cost of the paving in the storm sewer contract, because all they do is add percentage on to contract. So a paving contractor that we use in the village fairly continually came in and did these repairs, H.D. Sarter. Did an excellent job on the roadway, freshened the base, added all the new pavement in there, and there'll be a little bit more in the spring, because after the shoulders and the lawns are all restored, he has to come back and do a little bit more down the edges of the culvert. But at this point, I'm recommending that you pay this, and if we pay it by tomorrow, we can have that 5% discount that I have addressed in my letter.
That's my question. I saw we were up against 15%, but if we do it tonight, we're still good with them.
Correct.
Even though it says November 25th, it has to be paid by.
No, that was actually the date that the invoice came.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to pay HG Starter the amount of $5,925.15 based on the engineering report and recommendation we received.
And I'll second that motion.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Nagy. Further discussion?
We-
Roll call. Oh, go ahead.
Do we have any more? There's no more paving, that's all done now, so we don't have to, I mean, Mr. Sartor and the asphalt guys are all done for the year.
For the year, yeah, that is correct. Next spring will be the next time that there'll be any additional paving.
Okay, thank you.
The big pipe one at our outlet won't involve any paving then, right?
That is correct.
Roll call vote?
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Maggie.
Yes.
Kaznecki.
Yes.
Trumbull.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Item 2, Michigan Joint Sealing.
This one's even simpler. Michigan Joint Sealing came in and repaired the cracks in the rollerblading rink, in the basketball pavement there around the rollerblading rink, and in the tennis courts. And so this is a direct relationship to the cost that they bid for the road paving project. The only one that came in over that was the specialized filling for the rollerblading rink. We couldn't just use hot tar in that. It had to be a different type material. But otherwise, they had to come back a couple times, but it's done to my recommendation and satisfaction.
Any questions? Do I hear a motion?
So moved. I'd like to make a motion to pay Michigan Joint Sealing contractors $2,731.50 based on the documents we received and the recommendation from our engineer.
I'll second that motion.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Nagy. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
McGee.
Yes.
Maggie.
Yes.
Kaznecki.
Yes.
Trumbull.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Medrell.
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, can I ask Mike one quick
Sure.
question? This is your department. Where are we at, or what's going on with the augmentation well? I thought we were supposed to have that being finished this year.
The DEQ, actually, the head of the DEQ actually apologized. It sat on his desk for a long time. That's Andy Hartz. It is totally approved, and that permit should be coming any day to be able to put that augmentation line in down to the lake. The line wasn't the issue. When we get right next to the lake shore, they had some issues on that. But otherwise, it has been approved, and the permit should be coming anytime. And I guess if I could ask Sharon, have you seen that yet? Because it should be here any day. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, Mike, since Mr. Sinkowitz brought this up, what kind of time frame do we have to implement this augmentation once the permit is a year's worth or something like that?
Oh, no, the permit's good. Yeah, the permit's good for a year. That's correct. and DPW really has the skill to put it in, or we could put it out for bids. Either way, administration wants us to do that, or council does.
Be a springtime project, I
Oh,
presume.
definitely a springtime project, right.
Thank you.
All right, anything else for the engineer? Seeing none, we'll move on to item C. C1, the Water Management Board recommends council award the lake aeration contract to Savin Services, option 2, at a cost of $3997.64 as presented. Given that we had really substantial discussion of this item during our joint session, I think the way I'd like to start this item is, let's start with a motion, and then let's go into discussion. So do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make the motion that you just said.
So I hear from Kaznecki a motion that we proceed to award the lake aeration contract for the pilot project in Penny Lake to Savin Services, option 2, at a cost of $39,974.64 as presented.
Thank you.
And a second from Scott. Okay, thank you. Now, discussion, and I think I'd like to just say in discussion, real good session I thought we had last week around it. I know I pushed as hard as anybody could to go for that $25,000 option, but, you know, I've thought about it since then, looked at what we had. I think we've got a good recommendation from our lake consultant that this is the right thing to do. Got the recommendation from the water board. To be honest, as I thought about it in the larger scheme of things, that's a 3-year project. We want to give it the best chance to succeed. We want to have the best impact we can down there. I think that's the right recommendation, so I intend to support it.
Mr. President?
Yep.
I don't have the copy of that with me, but was that going to also use any muck away? Or is this just strictly?
This was strictly an aeration
No
system.
Okay. I had that suggestion about doing something, I guess maybe we would do that with our lake consultant and the water board. Does that still seem to be a viable thing to do, to find a couple areas where we do a 20 by 20 and see if that muck away is really beneficial?
Yeah, I know we made the motion out of that to ask the water board to look into finding a good sample area for that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, that was discussed, Ed, and I think we'll be moving ahead on that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll discuss it more at the next meeting.
I guess if I may ask Mr. Scott a couple questions.
Sure.
As far as, they were talking about, because their layout showed it being more to the, not the far end of the lake. Are they gonna plan on shifting that down? Because
Well, actually, if we, going with the full lake, which is option 2 with 39,000,
Okay.
we will be all the way
That'll
around
be
the
all the way
boat
around.
also.
They're adding a couple more
Yeah.
areas, aren't they?
I think, number of heads, it's
yeah.
actually in here.
Like
I
54
believe.
or something,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
54 is compared to, I believe, 32. So
Yeah, I think it's money well spent.
that's where I did shift that all the way down.
And I think the water board has basically said if this is going to be a 3-year, 5-year, or 10-year project, assuming it's going to work, that extra, over 5 years, an extra $3,000 a year just makes sense, which is the difference between the small and the larger project. So,
And I'm really comfortable, we did our due diligence around that, around finding the best options.
absolutely. A lot of work.
Further discussion?
I have another question, I guess. Both the companies seem to agree. By the way, the muckway was for the pond people, not the...
Yeah, although
Savin had something available also.
They did.
Yeah.
My question was, they both companies basically agreed, I'm just quoting the muckway, the company that used the muckway, the pond guy. They said, they quoted, the most logical, cost-effective solution is to target, a certain area with bio-augmentation and aeration. So the question is really why, I support it too, but why did they elect to not recommend bio-augmentation along with the aeration?
I think 2 factors were involved. One would be cost. I think we were talking 9,000 plus per year. The bio was really, and still is aimed at, let's say, the first 10 feet of the beach. It's not aimed at the deep water. and I believe that was covered in discussion, is that basically, we're gonna see about the same rate of reduction using the aeration only. So I think it was just pulling away from the $9,000 a year, making it a really more of a pure test.
I mean, my
We can
impression
always come
from,
back at it if we think it works. I mean, if we want to add it.
right, yeah, my impression from the proposals and, some earlier things that we've seen is that if we added the if we added the bioremediation on top, we would likely see additional removal of muck, additional things. But it's hard to know exactly how much is additional. And, we did have a cost concern around this. We've now voted to go a little bit over.
Right.
We're probably likely to vote to go a little bit over what our original intended pilot budget was. And also, I think doing 1 year in that area without bioremediation gives us a really nice baseline for, okay, here's what we get with just aeration. Now, if we add in bioremediation in places, let's see what we can get additionally.
I agree.
I guess I agree too. Moving forward then, regarding the muck white or the bio, wouldn't be augmentation if we use it in other sections of the lake, sample areas. One of the points they made, I think we all remember, is that what makes that work, or one of the factors that makes it work as well as it does, is because the water is moving. So to use the muck away or another product in an area that's not associated with the augmentation would seem to kind of almost void the analysis you would do on that product.
You mean to use it in an area where there's no aeration?
Correct.
That's what you're saying.
Correct.
I guess my impression was that it's much more effective if you do the aeration, but it will still work. You'll get some remediation
Works faster.
even if you do something. Yeah, it works
Well, it might
faster.
make
if
some
you get more.
sense, I mean, I'm sure the water board's gonna discuss it, but it might make some sense to try two areas, try
That's
one
what my
in the aeration
suggestion was,
area and
yeah.
the one outside the main lake area,
Yeah.
That
where
might
there
be a
is
good
any.
idea.
It's possible.
Yeah, I think that's what Ed had suggested, to do that.
Yeah.
So, we'll have water board take a look at it and come back to us with the recommendation. I think it holds promise too. Especially in areas like the canals or behind the bridge where we have a tough time getting with some of the other things we do. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Nagy?
Yes.
Ezeki?
Yes.
Humboldt?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Sinkwitz?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, council, and thank you to everybody on water board who's done a lot of work on this issue over the last few years.
Thank you to the patience of the council to allow us to continue to move forward.
This is going to be exciting, I think.
so.
Yeah, this is a new thing that we're trying.
Yeah, this is really exciting.
Okay, item 2, Water Management Board recommends council renew aqua weed controls contract for herbicide application for the 2014 season. I assume that is at current rates?
The rates you see are a 2% increase.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Let me go back. That'll teach me to start talking about it before I go back to my There we go. Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Now make-
Motion Sikowitz, second nay,
Fine.
or vice versa. Further discussion on that?
John, from your experience in talking with our consultant, they had no issues at all with these people. I mean, they work well together. I presume that's why the water board recommended that we continue with their services.
Yeah, exactly. So we actually had some extended discussions with Paul. They were very comfortable. He was very comfortable with the way they processed their orders or instructions, and at the same point in time, felt that they had a great working relationship. So it didn't make any sense to change that relationship.
And we had no complaints from the village that you know about, Sharon, that they didn't do a good job, or, I mean, everybody complains, well, I still got weeds type thing, but as far as any feedback from
No,
those people.
Aqua Weed Control has been treating our lake for many, many
Yeah,
years,
but-
so, no. I
Okay.
think they did a good job, and I think they worked well together.
Yeah.
That's what I heard from
Okay, thank you.
Progressive.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
They know each other pretty well.
Roll call vote?
Ezeki?
Yes.
Humboldt?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Sinkwitz?
Yes.
Nagy?
Yes.
Nagy?
Yes.
All right, that brings us to item D2. Park and Rec recommends council reappoint Roger Bush to the board for a 3-year term expiring 12/31/16. This is just a reappointment after his term expired.
I'll make it a recommendation.
I'll second it.
Motion Nagy, second Kaznecki. Further discussion? He's been a great asset to the board. He's
Yes.
also a great asset to our Pathway Committee.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Motion carries. D3, Park and Rec recommends that each neighborhood park contains a bench, swing, trash receptacle, and a sign. So Pam, you want to introduce that discussion?
The reason for that is, we have been talking for months about neighborhood parks or pocket parks. And we've kind of talked about each park kind of containing basic needs or equipment. And we decided that we needed to put it in writing that the basic need at least, and depending on where the neighborhood park would eventually happen, whether it be Oak Island or Helmsford or some other place, if there's a larger area, then, obviously additional things can be added. But we thought it would kind of go on record recommending what we thought a basic park should basically have. We want, the signage to be the same on all the parks. There should be a bench. We need a trash receptacle. We've talked about other items as well, like dog-eat trash bags and things of that nature. But we just wanted to go on record stating that we thought this is what a minimum pocket park or neighborhood park should have.
So
It's
this would be,
nothing more than we've talked about before.
this would be the basic setup.
Right.
How many parks are we looking at?
We're just looking at one right now. I mean, I think we want to do one, learn from that, and then look at alternate spots at a later date.
My only concern is the same concern I brought up over and over about these pocket parks. Some of the locations, there are no small children living in those areas, but you're assuming that people are going to walk by, come by, and use the park. I think the important thing is in a neighborhood, that you need to get a consensus of opinion from the people that live in that neighborhood if they do want a park or not. But I think for the village or the Parks and Recreation, say, you're getting a park if you want it or not.
No, I don't think that's the thought, we're not shoving it down anybody's throat. You have to remember that the areas that have been discussed, they've never been approved, or we've never gone forward with them, other than a lot of discussion around Oak Island, because it is village property. And my street alone, in this past year, we've had 3 new young families move in with children, little children that haven't been there in years. So things change, dynamics change, people move, new people come in. So even if today there aren't any young children, that doesn't mean that next year there might not be. As well as, it's a park for the community as much as it is that neighborhood. It just would make it easier for people who do have young children to find someplace a little closer and not have to go all the way over to Clara Miller.
Well, that, like I said, the residents that live around the park are the ones that have to put up with it.
Right,
Not- Not you or not the board, so I just think that we should get some kind of consensus of opinion, some kind of a straw vote or some information from that subdivision or that community if they're in favor of it.
Yeah, My impression from, reading the minutes of the meeting is that Park and Rec is well aware that we want to make sure we get neighborhood input when we do this.
Oh, absolutely. That's been
We're certainly going to need to
discussed
hold a
every
public
meeting.
hearing or two to make sure that everybody has a chance
Good.
to weigh in. What we're really looking at here is, so what's the basic setup for a small neighborhood park? This seems a pretty reasonable set of things. If we come in and, 30 people come in and say, gosh, we don't want to swing, we want to slide, we're going to listen to that. So.
Yeah, right.
Or if 30 people from that neighborhood all come in and they say, we really
I'm just
hate the idea, we're
concerned
going to
that
listen to that too.
As long as the residents of that particular area
Yeah.
have a chance to voice their opinion and then go from there.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. We need to make sure we have a
Yeah.
process that's open to them.
I strongly support Parks and Rec and Pam's position on this thing, and I was at that meeting, and my view was that this discussion has gone on a long time, partly due, in my opinion, the board was taking extra steps, in my opinion, too much time to be eventually overly sensitive to the current makeup of that particular neighborhood. The case was made that the turnover, like Pam suggested an example on her street, where there could be a number of empty nesters or single people, whatever, that within, you fast forward 3 years and you have a bunch of elementary school children living in that same area. So I think that, yes, you need some input, but I don't support any kind of conditional input. Make sure that the neighborhood agrees with it. So that's why I strongly encourage them to just set a baseline or a base list of something you want in every park, no matter what. And then maybe in a certain situation, if the particular neighborhood happens to be at that time an older demographic, maybe they want more than one bench or something like this that kind of more suits them on a more personal level. But I mean, I think yes, we have to be sensitive to the current makeup of that particular neighborhood, but that doesn't, they were going, in my opinion, too far. And to get this thing moving, I think they needed to say, listen, this is what we want in every park. And that's, I think, the steps they're taking. So again, I strongly support, I think, the steps they're taking. They were being too cautious, I think. You can be sensitive, and then you can kind of be just stalled. And I felt that that's where they were eventually they were getting to, so.
So do I hear a motion that we accept Park and Rec's recommendation that a neighborhood park set up, hold on a second, I'll find it again here, that each neighborhood park contain a bench, swing, trash receptacle, and a sign? Do I hear that as a motion?
I'd make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion Nagy, second Scott. Further discussion?
I want to say one, if you read the minutes, it says bench or table. I think it said large swing or something like that.
No, it was small, it was a small
I thought
swing.
that when I went to the minutes, it was slightly different than this, but.
I thought I remembered reading small swing, but
It says tall swing in the memo.
Tall?
You meant small.
small.
Small
It
swing,
said
is that what
tall.
it
It came to us as tall.
says? Does it say bench or table? Or picnic table?
says bench or picnic table.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, bench or picnic table, tall, small swing, trash receptacle, and a sign.
Okay.
So that's the motion we have.
Sounds good.
I wondered what a tall swing was.
So that's
I
for
was
little-
picturing something tall with a long arm.
So little kids can't do that.
I'd just like to, if I could, extend the point that Ron was making. I guess living on Oak Island, I am also sensitive to, being the president of the Oak Island Association, I get sensitive to the neighbors. But I know in the last 12 months, we have had 5 new purchasers up there. And out of those 5, 2 are bringing children and young children. And I grew up in a neighborhood where there was a park. And, you know, at that time, I guess, people could say to their kids, go to the park, I'll see you in 10 hours, and be home for dinner. I don't know how we got to the point we did. Yeah, I think they still do that. But the point I wanted to extend that Ron, because I was at the same meeting, is that it is village property. And I think if we're going to put a footprint down and we're going to say these are our parks and we are going to be consistent with what we're doing, the sensitivity of who is there is important, but it shouldn't define the fact whether or not we're going to put a park there. I guess that's really the point I'd like to say. I mean, that's our responsibility as a village. I think it's Park and Rec's decision. And every meeting I've been at, they have talked about talking to the residents. But I just wanted to be clear, it's my opinion that it is our park, I mean, and we should go ahead and do this so that we can define the village and put these 5 parks in place over time.
To that, actually, I would add, one of the discussion points that's come up, you know, with neighborhood parks before, when we first started talking about doing this, is not just the current makeup of the village and the neighborhood, but to make some of these neighborhoods that are a distance from a park a little bit more attractive to potential homeowners. It's a real estate selling point. It is something that attracts families and, you know, village residents. So. Okay, we have a motion. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Can I
all
ask
right.
one quick question,
Sure.
Pam?
Mhm.
What's the status of the Vita Trail?
I know they had looked at a bunch of equipment, and my memory serves me right. I think Lynn said that the
I'm working
admin
on it.
office is working on it.
Next year, maybe?
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, recommendation from ZBA, more expiring terms. ZBA recommends council reappoint Craig Minnelli, Glenn Ponder, and Charles Gottlieb to ZBA 3-year terms expiring 12/31/16.
I'll make that motion.
Motion Nagy, do we hear a
Support.
second? Second Sinkowitz. Further discussion?
Just Craig, he can be a little bullheaded at times, but he's run the meeting very fairly. And keeping Craig as the chairman, I think Charles and Glenn especially have added a lot to that meeting since we lost our key member here a couple years ago, who passed away. And but I think it's, the ZBA has a good group right now of people. I think we ought to keep it.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So recommendations from the Administrative Committee. Number one, Administrative Committee recommends council reduce the size of Water Management Board from 9 members to 7 members. So, council sent to us the issue of attendance at boards and commissions. We compiled that attendance report, which you all have, and I should say Tabitha worked a ton of hours compiling that. A very royal we there. Thank you, Tabitha, for going through all the attendance, but making sure that we had a really good, accurate view of what was going on with the boards. And what we found was, people missing minutes here and there, or people missing meetings here and there, for reasons that generally happens. But we also found that there had been an increasing pattern of absenteeism on the Water Management Board. We talked about that a little bit. We think there's been a tendency sometimes on Water Management Board for us to appoint people because we have open positions. That hasn't always worked out. We've often had a difficult time recruiting new people in there. And we thought that the best way maybe to address the absenteeism problem and sort of the continuous problem that we've had over the last few years, getting good volunteers for that board, is to reduce the size of the board a little bit, to do it through attrition. So we're not saying bump anybody off, but if we have board members who don't make those meetings, then, that would be a reduction in size of the Water Management Board. We would go to 7. It's still a very large board. 9 is a very large board for that sort of thing. And we thought that was the best way of addressing it. Absenteeism has clearly become a problem on that board. We don't want it to be, and that was our recommendation.
Well, then, just to clarify, so if somebody's term came up
So-
and there were still 9 on board, would we not?
If somebody's term comes up and it's a standard reappointment, I would recommend that we don't stop it at that point. The time to make the reduction is if we have a resignation, or if we have somebody who would need to be reappointed for absenteeism.
What is the historical time that the Water Management Board has been in place? Isn't it 16, 18 years, something to
It's
that effect?
about that, yeah.
Longer than
It
that.
was the water
Longer
team
than that.
before
Well,
that.
it started out as the CAT team.
1991.
That the board
That
itself
was
became
the
part of it?
Community
22
Action
years.
Team, then it became the Water Board, and now it's the Water Management.
And I was just wondering, in all of that time, is this an unusual situation? I mean, I guess, from a management standpoint, I'm not sure whether it's 9, 10, 200. It's really a question of who you recruit, how you manage. So you could have the same problem at 7 that you're having at 9, I guess. And I know, it was my sense, and I know you've been on the board, I know Ron's been on the board, Pam, yourself, right? We've all been on the board.
CAT team.
Cat team, I was gonna say, the predecessor
Bob
today.
Harrison and.
Yeah, so it's an
Mike
important
Axon,
input,
yeah.
I think. It's really a question of maybe an alternative way is, is maybe to shorten the length of time that you can service on the board. Maybe it's 3 terms or something to get new meat in there, to get new ideas in there. I'm not sure that size reduction is going to increase or decrease absenteeism. I'm not, I understand the intent, but I'm not sure if it's really going to go in the direction you want to go.
Well, it's a start. You know, with 9 people on board, you know, you almost, well, if I don't make it tonight, there's still 8 people. And then
As long as you have a quorum on
Yeah.
any.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a problem with this board. I mean, we've had some meetings that couldn't happen because of a lack of quorum.
Hmm.
And we had, you know, the attendance record on that board was generally pretty good, more or less, up, you know, 2008, it was just a couple, 2009, it was just a couple, but 2010, we had 6, 8, 10, 11 total absences. 2011, we had 11 total absences. 2012, we had 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 total absences.
It's possibly just, you know, the items that are on there are, you know, get so involved and there's so much involved that some people lose interest, and it seems like there's a few people driving the stage and the other ones are just riding along.
To be honest,
That's
Ed,
why
I don't know
think
that.
7 is a more controllable, manageable number.
I think 7 is a good number for that board in terms of, you know, historically over time, in terms of the number of truly active members we've had on that board.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the makeup has always been composed of some members who go out and do tons and tons, a few other members who do a little less.
True for most boards, actually.
True for most boards. The amount that goes through there, the amount that doesn't go through there, I don't know that it entirely merits a 9-person board. Water management board, the reason I wouldn't actually be in favor of, you know, term limits or something like that on the board is that's a board that really rewards long service in terms of getting to know the lake issues,
Mhm.
getting to know what's been tried, getting to know what hasn't been tried. And that's a board that also, you know, routine attendance at those meetings, especially the meetings that may not be a topic that you like, is important because those topics are complicated and you need to be there on a regular basis to be able to know those issues.
Mr. President?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think on the other side, I'm sorry, Pat. Go ahead.
All I was going to suggest, Cliff Yance, the chairman of the water board, showed up late. He didn't miss the call to the public. I don't know if we want to get some input from Mr. Yance while he's here.
I would be happy to ask for Cliff's input here. So Cliff, let me ask you if you want any input, and if so, I'll call on you. So Cliff, yes, hand the mic on back. Get our sound engineer Bob Malik out there.
Cliff Yance, 1203 Mallow. Well, the only concern I have is that, yes, there's been a few members that, you know, I could even point to that probably, you know, could have been not re-upped or whatever. So the only thing, the one thing I'm concerned about is that there's a bunch of projects that we like to take care of. This year in particular, even myself found it hard to work on those type projects. And by going from 9 to 7, are we kind of hamstringing ourselves a little bit with those projects? Because unfortunately, we don't have a lot of community participation for our meetings. I mean, if we have something that's contentious, maybe we'll have a few people in the audience. But so, you know, are we taking away, by taking away the 2 members, are we taking away 2 potential volunteers to do activities? And that would be the only reason I'd have any concern. Otherwise, I would reflect your probably feelings on the council that, you know, we've had too many absentees, and by a few people that are habitual, you know, and I had made a call if anybody wanted to step down because we had a new person that wanted to come on, and you know, the one person I was really hoping would didn't, and then somebody else, you know, bowed out instead, and it was kind of a little disappointing because they had missed 4 meetings this year. So
I-
So,
I would say my other recommendation, if we don't want to make a permanent reduction in it, is that, we stop reappointing people who miss meetings. That we just do. And if we have to have empty seats on the board, and empty seats on the board for a long time until we can find the right volunteer, so be it.
You're talking about reappointments because of unexcused absences, is that what you're referring to? Or if it's just because their term's up and we reappoint them? I mean,
No, not terms up. Look, 3-year term, it comes up. When we get asked to do a reappointment because of absences, and on water board, there's not excused absences or unexcused absences. If you miss, I think it's 1/4 of the meetings, is that
25%.
25%? If, you then have to be either appointed or reappointed. And we have traditionally let that slide. And I think, it's on us. We probably shouldn't have started with that, but we need to be dead serious about if people aren't making the meetings, they shouldn't be on the board.
and I wouldn't disagree with that. I knew that there was a few people that had made their number. I hadn't gotten the notification from the administration, so then I was kind of letting it slide. But, you're right. And again, if people aren't going to attend, then they probably shouldn't be on these.
Yeah, I mean, my
kind of
real
boards.
concern about it is it clearly shifted from being, the social norm on that board that you had to attend the meetings and you had to go out of your way to be at that meeting, to at some point it became the norm that it was okay to miss the meetings. And, I sound like everybody's gym teacher or something up there, but by gosh, you gotta make the meetings.
Don't disagree.
So I think those are the alternatives that we have for council. One is to simply reduce the board in size. If we find that 7 isn't a large enough board, we can always increase the size. It's our board. It's not set in state law or anything, so we can change the membership as we want, and to allow that reduction to happen through natural attrition. Or we have to, as a council and as a board recommending reappointments, be dead serious about absenteeism being not acceptable. If you can't make the meetings. And I understand very much that things come up. Sometimes people get sick, family emergencies, things happen, but it can't be a regular habitual absenteeism. It does us no good to have somebody on a board if they're not there.
Another thing I'd like to bring up, and I'm not sure how much of this is done, but I like the idea of the 7, however we get to there, either through attrition or whatever happens. But the other thing is that you look at, like, Parks and Recreation, you look at the fireworks, and some of these other committees, if their functions were just going to be done with the people that are on the committee, nothing would ever get done. You have to get volunteers. And I think this is one thing that where maybe the water board is missing the boat.
No pun intended.
Got that? Is that you're not reaching out. If you're doing a fish study, or if you want to do testing with the SESI disc and you don't have enough people, I'm sure that if you either advertise or got a hold of some people, I mean, I have free time. I'd be more than happy to go on a boat. I remember when Metkowski got me to go out and dig holes in the ice to check the oxygen. I had a hand auger, and I didn't know that the ice was 24 inches thick. So he didn't get.
That's why Gene got you to dig the hole.
He didn't get a Christmas card for me that year. But I mean, I think you have to reach out. If you guys put a program together or a plan and say, just like the Goose Roundup, on this day we need people to help us, I know you're going to get them, because there's a lot of avid fishermen and a lot of people that, anybody that lives on the lake has to be concerned about the lake. That's where I think the Water Management Board in the last couple of years, like John was saying, last 5-10 years, has missed the boat, as you haven't gone out and gotten other volunteers to help with projects.
Well, and, a smaller board, that could be an element of it, is having volunteers who do stuff on the lake, which, to be honest, is fun, interesting stuff. And, some folks who make the meetings. And, you run into stuff. We have Paul Biediger, who, is a real good board member, real good community member, but fireman and works on Wednesday nights and can't make those meetings, well, it'd still be great to be able to keep them involved, so.
Yeah, I think
If
further.
you could back up a second, I mean, go ahead, Pat,
So,
go ahead.
Yep.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, further what Ed said about getting people to volunteer, I think we tried that. We tried 2 years ago when we first installed the boat washing station. I think the village sent out a village-wide email to try to get people to come and volunteer to help out. And I know I was sort of running that at that time, and I got a couple of emails, but nobody ever followed up on it. And I think I was down there one time, somebody said they showed up and said, I'll come help, but even to try to get that, we tried to send a village-wide email, hey, we got this new boat wash station, we'd appreciate some support from the village residents to man it and to get the word out, but that, even the way we tried that, it didn't do very well, and we had to do it ourselves, basically, the water board members.
Well, I will say, I don't think email's a particularly good recruiting tool for anything. Email's a good communication tool, it's good for a lot of things, but in terms of trying to recruit volunteers, it's tough, because all of us have more or less, we're all in the same boat, where we get 200, I get 200 emails a day asking for volunteer help, and, they just, you can't do them all.
I think we're getting away from I'd like to, are you done, John? I mean,
No, I am ranting.
Yeah.
Let me continue my rant.
I like to back up. The administration was a broad based against across all the committees and all the boards on the village about a lack of attendance, not just on water board but on all the boards. And eventually we decided to take action to make a recommendation on one, but it wasn't just about water board. And the idea and this problem with the lack of volunteerism and participation in whether it's snacks for Santa or the cleaning station at the launch or whatever. I mean, that's been an ongoing issue that we have tried to address with not successfully up to this point, but like the volunteer appreciation day and lunches and things like that. And it is difficult to recruit people and to get the people engaged in their community. And I don't think our village is alone in that regard either. But going back to what the administration committee was dealing with was a lack of people basically committed by reviewing their attendance to their participation on these boards and committees. And we saw frequently that people just get relieved of their membership on the board, and then, they're a warm body, so we up, and then we fill it back in again. There was no qualitative analysis of their participation membership on that board. And the facts are that a lot of things that the board recommends, like the water station, things like that, the cleaning station, if it falls just upon the board, there's always going to be an issue. I mean, so this volunteerism and bringing other people in to be active in the community, that is one issue. But regarding the makeup and the size of the boards, in most cases, the water board, I think in particular, there might be 9 people on there, but the lion's share of the research and the ideas and the energy behind it stems from 2, 3, 4 people. And that's probably consistent with other boards as well. So I guess 2 things. I mean, I don't think first, I don't want to focus just on water board, because that's not fair to them.
I think you are making a good point, Ron, that we looked at all of the boards individually, and this was the only place where we thought we really had a systematic problem.
So, yeah, the feel like we're focusing on water board would be inaccurate.
Let's call for the vote.
I think we don't yet have a motion on the
Okay.
floor. We've had long discussion.
I'll make a motion that we reduce the size of the Water Management Board to 7 active members.
Motion Sinkowitz, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second Cumbo. That reduction to be done through attrition for either resignations or, need for reappointment due to absenteeism. That's in the motion, assumed, right?
That's fine.
That was certainly there. Okay, further discussion on that motion.
Does it make sense to have a couple, and I'm not using the mic, so I'm speaking up, to have a couple volunteers or alternates on that, so you can maintain somebody on the board if somebody's absent?
I don't want to go down that road. I think we have 7 members on the board, and see how that works out.
I agree with that. That was discussed at the meeting as well, about the use of alternates, and that we thought, I think administration discussed, in fact, and felt that there was no need for that.
Well, they wouldn't be up on everything that happened if they weren't there at every meeting. They wouldn't.
I mean, that's true, but in terms of like discussion and stuff, the way the boards are set up now, if someone wants to just become an active participant in the discussion, they don't have to be a member of the board.
Right.
These boards have done everything they can to reach out to people for discussion, ideas, participation, whatever. I've never been to a board meeting that they said that you guys can't interact with us almost as a de facto member for the night. So I don't think that would ever be an issue as well, so.
No, and I think that the boards that have, the only one I know that has the alternates is the ZBA, because that's a key board that you're only meeting that one time and making decisions that night. It's not ongoing type of thing. Okay.
Okay, we'll go to John. Do we have a member of the public who wants to speak?
Yeah, I don't know how to term what I'm thinking. Let's call it a kiss and a hammer approach, because if we think about it, we just really brought everybody back on, so we shouldn't see any other turnover for another year, correct? Is that correct? So there's a year before this is going to be implemented, I guess, is
Well,
what.
no, unless somebody misses it.
Yeah.
And that was the point I was going to ask. If we're out and change and go to recruiting, we're going to be in a position that if we do find somebody to replace that is active and wants to do it, it's a position that vaporizes under the way this is being proposed. So that's why I said sort of a kiss and a hammer. Maybe what we should do is look at going to 7 if the Water Management Board can't recruit good people as they in fact exit over the next year, and make a determination whether we end up down at 7 because the Water Board doesn't do what it should do. And it's, as I think we've all looked at, and I agree, to get people to come onto these committees, you have to do handshakes. You have to talk to people in the neighborhoods. And that's how we got Paul Bittinger on and other people on. I mean,
That's how I got recruited into water board in the
that's
first place.
how I got recruited. And I'm just wondering if we make it a rock solid, if somebody resigns, we can't bring anybody on to replace them if we're going to lose the ability for 2 years to bring anybody on at all.
You have to remember, everything we do in this council chamber is never cast in concrete.
Correct.
Unless it has to do with the charter. So let's give it a year and see what happens. If it doesn't work out, 6 months, a year from now, we can look at it. But I think the administrative committee came back with some logical approach to the situation, and
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I was
Yeah.
just maybe a friendly amendment to say that it is council's intent to reduce the Water Management Board from 9 to 7 based upon what will in fact occur over the next year relative to water management, replacing, I know he's rolling his eyes, replacing individuals that should be replaced, but they're not replacing them with qualified people.
Well, remember
Which
that.
is, again, a decision that the council can make.
Remember the weekend, I mean, we don't have to fill the seat. I mean, if someone, their term expires, that they want to get back on, we feel they're not qualified, we can make the decision then that that's going to be the 9th seat, and then we're going to eliminate it at that point.
Okay.
I kind of disagree with you about one thing, where like, you make it seem like it's, if someone is not missing meetings despite their input into the committee, that as long as they continue to show up, then we're going to automatically re-up them. And I'm not really comfortable with that part of it. But
I think that's a reasonable point. If we have somebody who is just a bump on the log and they sit to the meeting, I mean, we expect more than that.
Right.
But that's the minimum that I expect.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a minimum expectation.
And I
And
think
that's
some of
why
that
the
has to
chairman.
go back to the,
yeah,
They should be making that
chairman could
decision,
point
I
that
mean.
out.
Yeah.
I'm sure that each chairman of every
let's
committee
go
wants
back to
people
the
that
board
are
itself.
active and willing and do their work, not just sit there and.
This is dealing just with the process of reducing the board from 9 to 7.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
I'd be willing to hold this reduction in abeyance for a year if we want to see if 2014 turns out differently or if they have absenteeism. But, you know, when I look at it, it's been a regular problem. We do have a member of the public who wants to speak. Do I hear a motion to open to the public?
make that motion.
Motion Nagy,
Second.
second Cumbo, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Malik.
I happen to be on a zoning board, as an alternate with Pat Nagy, who's an alternate. Now, it's a 7-person board. Pat and I make it 9 as alternates. As a rule, there are people that do miss meetings, which this happens. I've done it when I've been out of town and things, and other people. But like this last meeting we had all 9 people there. We had all 9 people actively had their input in our meeting, which I think your minutes will reflect from our last meeting. And the thing I'm leading to is you might go for your 7 with 2 alternates, but are you having too many meetings? In other words, like zoning only comes up when there's a zoning thing. So we might have a month or 2 off. But when you get the water board every month, and in January you're talking about fish, and in March you're talking about fish again, well, you don't need the March meeting. You know, I'm just picking them off the wall. But there could be that there's things that are repetitive, so somebody sits there and they say, well, geez, I've been through all this. Why do I can miss this meeting? You know, you might consider, is it a necessity to have 12 meetings a year? It's just, I'm going by what goes on with zoning, okay? And we all voted, even though the 2 alternates votes are technically fall off the board. But everybody got their input, they got the thing. You people mentioned, and I know I've seen it when I was on council and on the boards, where you're starving to get applicants to go ahead and sign up to these boards. You don't want to cut them off. And it makes sense. If you got the bump on the log, well, they'll have to be weeded out in some manner. Or somebody will have to prod them, you know, JC or whoever, do you have comment? And this is the type of thing that's going to enhance the board. Personal feeling. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public while we are open? Motion to close?
Second.
Motion Nagy,
Second.
second Cumbo, all in favor?
Aye. Bob makes a good point, but I mean, I think the boards themselves can make a decision. I think the boards have an option to say, hey, we don't feel we need a meeting next month. I believe that's the case, right? I mean, I want to be clear. I guess the question is that's within the board's prerogative to cancel next month's meeting.
Yeah, it is, but to be honest, for water board, there are so many, you know, sort of ongoing things, but, you know, maybe if there aren't that many actual project decisions to be made, but a lot of water management board is routine monitoring of what goes on the lake and knowing the status
I agree, and I'm not proposing they reduce their schedule, I'm just saying it's an option. If any board feels like, hey, we don't need, like, to address Bob's concerns, which I think are legitimate.
Yeah, and the oddity about water board is you would think that, okay, well, in the summer, the meetings are really important because that's when the lake's open and everything's there. And the winter meetings, you could probably skip a few. It tends to be that the winter is really when you're planning out what you're going to do for the next year. So they now, you know, could you move from 12 to 10? Probably.
Can we call for the vote?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've discussed this one up. So, motion to reduce to 7. Let me get a roll call vote on this.
Cumbo?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
Kaznowski?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, council. Look, and we'll try this. If it doesn't work, we can always increase again, so.
Mr. President, I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
Boards in general. Park and Rec was probably the second worst offender of absences. There was, you know, one person, unfortunately, who, you know, house burned down and missed a lot of meetings, kind of understandably so, and I think there was some illness involved as well. But the one thing that I noticed is the ZBA and the planning, they would have excused absences, and both the Water Board and Park and Rec did not. Now, is this something I should talk to Lynn about?
No, so,
It's in the ordinance.
yeah. Actually, Sharon, you want to explain
Yeah.
that?
Thank you.
Every ordinance talks about absences for each board and commission. So the water board does not have unexcused, and we did talk about that in our administrative committee meeting.
What about Park and Rec?
Park and Rec is.
They don't
no.
distinguish. And so, yes, the way ZBA and planning are set up under state law, you have excused and unexcused
Oh,
absences.
okay. All right.
When-
I
when-
just
when we-
noticed that, and I wanted
Right,
to
yeah.
bring that to attention.
Yep, and so when we looked at the issue too, we looked at it in terms of both excused and unexcused absences, because, to be honest, we are routine, motion to excuse on that front too. And I think, it needs to be to our attention that if somebody misses a meeting, there better be a good reason why they miss a meeting.
Yeah.
And I understand, we all have lives, we all have other things. but-
Yeah, and then, just to kind of piggyback on Ron a little bit, the first time that I've been on the Park and Rec, they did decide to not have a December meeting because everybody spent like 10 hours over at Richardson Center for Snacks with Santa this month. But, so that's the first time I think we've done it. But there are so many things that Park and Rec does. I'm blown away, and the hours that are put in. It's really, really hard to find someone that wants to commit to that much.
Yep. I
And
understand.
the planning commission, if there's nothing that they're discussing, they have had some months that they haven't had meetings.
Quite a few.
Also, this attendance history, we will be keeping that in the office now, and so we will be letting the chairpersons of each commission know if someone's missing more than 25% of the meetings.
Yeah. Thank you.
Before, it was sort of on the chairperson, and they don't always like to bring that up, I don't think. So now
Yeah.
we're going to be telling the chairperson that they've missed, and
Thank you for that
they'll take it off
clarification.
their shoulders.
And I think everybody can be glad we didn't go with the recommendation from my old college football coach, which was, if you miss a meeting, you run laps at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So,
Sure,
thanks,
I'm in
everybody.
bedroom.
In the stadium, up the stadium, down the stadium, don't ask me how I know.
Build your legs up, that's all.
Okay, second from admin is to complete your administrator's review, get it back to me, hoping to have them all by tonight. I think I've got them all from everybody but 2 council people who will remain nameless, but please finish it out. If you haven't had it in, finish it out, email it to me tomorrow. I'll be compiling them tomorrow. We'd like to do the review we're gonna have an admin committee meeting Friday morning, so we'd like to add that to that agenda and get it done, so. I think that's all I have on that one. Item H, second call to the public, opportunity for citizens to address the council regarding any and all village business. Seeing none?
So you passed I apologize, I didn't make it by the time. Usually, I'm safe getting here by 7:40.
Yes, we did
but-
approve the recommendation to go with the pilot project at the 39,000 Full Penny Lake.
Okay. Any discussion?
Right thing to do.
Fairly brief, an agreement that the water board had made the right recommendation there.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. Sorry again, I had another meeting and it went a half hour over, so, thank you.
All right.
We also approved the applicator also, Mr. Yance.
All right, anybody else call to the public? Seeing none, we will move on to item K, Open Meetings Act and potential village email addresses for council members. So a couple things on this. I know we had the long discussion of email, when to use, when not to use. I think things have been better on that front since we've gone through training, we've had some discussions. But I've also heard what a lot of people have said in terms of, 2 things that aren't great. One is having your personal email address out on the village website. The second of which is, we really want to make sure that we as a village are appropriately tracking email communications. And with that, I think the time has probably come for us to move to village email addresses. There are potentially 2 different ways you could do that. I know that the Oakland County method, or, the Oakland County website, webmail, has been described as clunky at best. There may, the other alternative that you could do, probably not a great idea, it's probably gonna make our attorney a little frowny, look, she's already frowning at me.
Go ahead.
Is we could potentially set people up with Gmail addresses that were only used for village business and, would have passwords that are essentially the village's passwords, so they would be a village address. And that might be a slightly more elegant, more updated solution. I don't know which would be best or best serve our needs, but, you know, it's gonna be 2014. It's time for us to have village email addresses. Almost all the surrounding communities around us do. I think what I would like really from the council is a recommendation that admin committee explore this and come back with a proposal.
I'll make that
Yeah.
recommendation.
I think that's a
Second.
good, that's good.
So move Nedrow, second Nagy.
However you want to do
Further discussion?
it. Yeah,
Good
relative-
idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had, when we discussed it before, I thought that Mr. Condeck said that he could give us all village email addresses very, like that. Is
Yes,
that-
but he also said that the system that does that is not
Okay.
as elegant or functional as we might wish for an email system in the year 2013. Am I summarizing correctly?
Quite correct.
But I mean, your email, you have problems with your email addresses too? In the village, I mean, administration and the treasurer?
No, I wouldn't say that, because, you know, at our workstations, we have access to it. What you would have to do to be a participant in this OakGov webmail is you'd have to log on to a website, you'd have to, you know, I would assign you a password that you would change, but you would have our domain name. It would be NAGGY or pnaggy@wolverinelake.com.
Okay.
That part of it's fine. But, you know, there's no instant notification, you know, logging in and logging out all the time. There's a limit, there's a size limit that the county's imposed on us in
Okay.
terms of total capacity that's available to us. I don't know how much use it would get. I don't know if we would hit the limit or the ceiling at any point in time soon, but, you know, there's that. So those kinds of things, you know, and if you wanted to look at it, say, on your iPhone or personal device, it's really hard to do. You've got to blow it up. I mean, I could show you next time you're in the village hall, and you would get a flavor for what it's like to have to deal with that.
Okay, I mean, whatever's the easiest approach.
Yeah, and
Get everybody
I don't have a
comfortable.
proposal for what we should do. I'm just saying, let's go ahead and do it, you know. Admin will work with the administrator, we'll work with Mike, we'll come back, you know, if it's a clunky email address, then it's a clunky email address, and, you know, we work around some of the limitations in the system. I am sure that at some point, Oakland County is really pretty tech savvy, so, you know, I'm sure they'll have it more mobile able, more interactive, mobile able. I'm making up words now, and it's only 10 after 8.
You might want to check into services like GoDaddy. I know, you know, you could set up, I don't know, wolvgov.com if it's not taken. And I use that on 4 different email accounts, and it is available on your mobile. I mean, they have an outreach app that you can put on. And the cost, I think, it's $8.95 or $12.95 a year to get the URL, and then you can have up to 50 email addresses for another $15 a year, so easy
Yeah.
to set up.
It's definitely worth investigating also.
Just a suggestion.
So, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second item is fairly similar to that, in terms of, it's 2014. This is something that I know has been an issue for our attorney and for our engineer. And occasionally with some office staff and our police captain. Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi connectivity. We have been very conservative around having that in the building because we have internal systems that need to be fully secure. But again, there are ways to do this. There are alternatives, be they a genuine public hotspot email or hotspot Wi-Fi, be they something more combined with password protected for, you know, village contractors and council members. But I think we should be able to find something, and there are really specific business needs that we have for that. For our attorney to look up ordinances, that law is an online business now. For our engineer sometimes to find information when he's down there, and same thing for our police force. So I would like to have a motion that council ask the administrative committee to work with the administrator and our treasurer to come up with a proposal for Wi-Fi in the village council building.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion Nagy, second Kazanecki. Further discussion?
I can just add that, you know, in all the communities that we represent, this is the only one that doesn't have Wi-Fi. And Tech Resources, who's your IT people, represent 3 of the communities that we do too. So I know they have the ability to offer that service in an appropriate way.
I don't think we're going to have to be pioneers here.
Yeah, no, not at all. And really, I can't tell you how many times you've had a member of the public stand up and have a question. And I have, you know, 4G on my phone, so but you have, this is like a cellular dead zone too. So if I go stand over by that window, you know, I can sometimes, it's horrible zone in here for anything. And there have been a lot of times where I could answer their question, but I just don't have the resources to do that. And that's, you know, the wonder of today that I can do that. So it's a good service.
Seeing no further discussion, seeing pretty good consensus around the table, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So, you know, we'll try to work with the office staff and come back to you with a proposal. Okay, those were my 2 items. Thank you, council. Set topics for the December 2013 work session, and I note that the 4th Wednesday is indeed Christmas Day, so.
Well, I make a motion that we do not have a work session for December.
That we
I make a-
forego our December 3rd, 2013 work session meeting.
I'm listening.
Thank you, I had forgotten.
No.
Okay, so, I don't think we want to have a meeting on the 4th Wednesday.
Oh, here it comes.
However, admin committee is reviewing trash contract RFPs. Our current trash contract expires at the end of the year. And although it would be possible to work out an agreement over a few weeks past then, it would be good for being able to do the transition if we had a council vote on the recommendation back and let's get that trash contract taken care of. So I would like to hold, thank you for reminding me, a work session on the 3rd Wednesday, which would be the
Next
18th.
Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
18.
So,
In one
in all the
topic-
hubbub, I didn't hear it.
Ed was trying to make a motion.
Yeah.
You can't, sorry.
Yeah, try to get at, come on.
Well,
In one
I
topic
can't
for-
believe that, as long as we've been with, well, the decision has been made of who we're gonna go with yet?
Decision hasn't been made
Okay,
yet.
that we couldn't wait till after the first of the year, but,
We received 5 proposals,
okay.
and there are 2 that are really good proposals. Well, they're all good proposals, but as far as cost.
18th it is.
And that would be the only thing on your agenda, so.
Be the only thing on the agenda, so it might be a really quick one. I mean, I
A
think it's gonna be real
one-topic work
straightforward.
session.
Yes.
Impossible.
Well, not a work session.
Not a work session, special session. We would be awarding the contract at that
Call
point.
the public.
Maybe if we had moved forward on electronic meeting communication, we could just
It could be all
email
on
our votes
Skype.
in or something like that.
Tell me on Skype.
We'll need Wi-Fi first. Should be a quick one. I understand. But I really would like to get that taken care of this month. So, in all the hubbub, I didn't actually hear a motion. Did I hear a motion to hold a special session on next Wednesday, December 18th to, is that the 18th?
Yes.
Yeah, December 18th, to award the waste hauling contract? It's gonna be really hard for me to make it.
Okay. So that's the 18th.
You're looking for a motion?
I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a
Nobody makes a
motion
motion, we can't do
that we
it.
meet next Wednesday to review
You know, there's
the
a
waste
strategy
Thank you.
management, the waste
Do I-
contract.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Second. Further discussion.
One
Believe
topic
me, I
work
share
session.
your pain.
A one-topic work session,
One topic.
that's the only reason we're meeting.
Yeah.
So it can be over with in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe 20.
We'll do it as fast as we can. We'll give it all due consideration, but
I have it scheduled for 10 minutes.
You guys get it for 10 minutes.
Well, keep in mind, the administrative committee is going to review all of this on Friday, so.
Yeah, we'll review, we'll get you back the details on, you know.
I take it there's not gonna be any presentations by the company involved then, right?
Not unless you want them.
No.
Look, if admin committee says we want presentations, we'll let you know about that. too.
Okay, that's fine. We'll add an extra 10 minutes.
I don't think presentations would take 10 minutes.
Make it 47 on Thursday.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries. We will meet next Wednesday. Thank you for reminding me, I had forgotten that. Okay.
No.
Item N, South Commerce Pathway Recommendations. Just happy to give everybody a quick summary of that committee, what we've done since we've met. We've talked a little bit about alternatives, where we are, and this weekend, most of the committee took a walk. A couple of the other committee members walked independently because they couldn't make our Sunday walk. But we walked a good chunk of South Commerce, especially looking for, with regard to where does a pathway make sense. It was our consensus that it is much more feasible, much more sensible to put a pathway over on the Walled Lake side for a lot of reasons. We also took a look at the scope of what we're doing, where we're going, if we're talking about multi-community pathways and presentations. And we think it makes sense to look at some of the alternatives up on Glengarry and on Benstein, where there are places where walkways, on the other side of the border might actually be beneficial to both communities. Next items up really are to reach out to the other communities, talk with them some, get their input, see if we can get their buy-in, and put together a proposal for doing something. In terms of outreach to those, had some informal discussions on and off with Commerce and with Walled Lake. It's been a while, especially with Commerce, but with Walled Lake, maybe as recently as a year or two ago, in terms of would they be interested in pursuing something. Generally positive response. There's always positive response to potentially pursuing something. It becomes a matter of doing something. We got to find out what buy-in we have from them. And also had a brief conversation with our state representative Clint Kesto this fall around the idea of a pathway. He was interested. He said he'd like his staff to work with us in terms of pursuing funding alternatives. As a proposal, a pathway system that ties in rail to trail, up all the way up to Dodge Park and out to Proud Lake. We've got a high school there. We've got some high traffic roads with no walkways on them that have pedestrian traffic going. When you walk on there, you can see the path that there is. There is a pathway there that's been worn by people's feet, and it's not a particularly safe one.
I'm surprised the Walled Lake Central School had not approached Walled Lake or brought this up to, from something generated from the school for the safety of the students that walk. Because it's been like that for over 41 years that I know of.
Yeah, so from a school point of view, and I don't know if they've ever had discussions or thought about it from that point of view. I know at one point we did look at a program called Safe Paths to School, which does grants for pathways and for safe pathways to get kids off of roads. But it also has a lot of requirements around, size of path and maintaining crossing guards and a lot of things that would have been really outside of our scope. And at the time that we looked at that, really for us, we were mostly looking at our internal pathway, our proposed, linking up the neighborhoods. We weren't really looking at some of these alternatives because, we looked at it and we said, gosh, that's a terrible place to have a pathway. It's going to be complicated. We hadn't looked as much at the other side of the road. So Walled Lake schools would be a potential, because we would like to put something all the way up there. They would certainly be a potential stakeholder here. Oakland County does a lot of pathway work, and this would really be linking up pieces of Oakland County pathway that exist now. And at some points you look at that some of those big pathways, and it all comes in here, and then it just sort of stops right there. So I think we have the potential to have a high-value project that would get some buy-in from surrounding communities, be attractive for state funding, and get something done there. But we're gonna have to work with a lot of folks to do it. That's sort of the overall of where we are on the pathway. In terms of our specific recommendations, we had two motions that we wanted to make. One is to ask the village administrator to potentially work with our engineer or somebody to just draw up a couple of maps with some pathway options that we've talked about. Nothing complicated, we're not asking for engineering drawings or anything, but so that when we go to these other communities and talk about the problem and what we see as the solution, we have something, something concrete to show them. And then the second is to ask the village administrator and the village president, to start reaching out to these other communities with, to get their buy-in, to see how they want to engage in this process, and to see what we can do to build a real, community group together with community buy-in from, Commerce Township Board, Walled Lake City Council, Oakland County, get some momentum around this and get this done. It's been a problem, as Ed noted, for 41 years, if not longer. Just walking it out there, you can see, number one, how really dangerous it is, especially in a few spots.
In the morning especially.
And how many people really walk it? I mean, you walk it and you can see the pathway that is there because people walk it all the time. And it's a tough spot.
Mr. President, are we going to include Glengarry too in that path?
Yeah, I would.
Because we talked about it when we got into that road paving.
Yep.
And I personally would think the community would benefit so much more with the sidewalk that went down Glengarry on our side of the street than 4-foot shoulder on each side.
Yeah, when we looked at the positions, we thought a sidewalk on our side was the best solution in there. And I think so. And that's why we talked about that. And we actually talked about Benstein too. Really, I think at this point, maybe we should consider expanding the scope, officially from council, from South Commerce walkway to external walkways, or, external village walkways. Because that's what we're really looking for here, are solutions where we share these borders with other communities and we don't have any walkways.
Yeah, but the nice thing about Benstein is there's certain areas that don't have a connection, but if you came down Glengarry, you go down Apple Orchard Lane and you're already at the park. And you didn't have to go on a street that exceeds 25 miles an hour. So there's those routes to get around, but Glengarry, you'd have to go down all these streets to get through with avoiding traffic.
And that's part of the problem is that though we might like people to do that's not how people actually it was really interesting to see as we were walking down there. There was a guy walking up South Commerce, and we were down at the area where there is a certain amount of sidewalk in front of the church. It's a couple hundred yards of actual sidewalk. It's well in. It's, you can clearly tell it was part of the planning process. It was done at a time when people said, hey, we eventually want to have a sidewalk here. Real nice sidewalk, but it's, it's a 30-foot jog off the road. So he just kept walking right down the little 6-inch shoulder there, right on the road where everybody walks, instead of walking the 30 feet over and then walking along. It's there's the way we wish people would walk, and then there's the way they actually walk. And I think traffic engineering tries to deal with the latter, and that. So I've, I agree. I think at this point I'm just rambling on a bit, but.
I just wanted to support what Ed said too. I think we ought to bring in the Walled Lake school system. I mean, I can't think any more third-party force that has really something we could have them on our back and say, this is great for the community. Whether they can put money forward or not, that's not the question.
The kid went home and told their parents.
Yeah, exactly.
What we need more than anything else for this is community support.
Exactly.
If we can get and show solid community need and solid community support from all three local communities, we're going to find the funding for this.
Yeah. One other question, although we don't want to engage our engineer for an engineering print, I know you know the community well enough. I know as we were going down Glengarry, we had open discussions about the fact that there are areas where a large number or a number of trees would have to come down. So maybe that's something that as that plan is put together, we could come back to council and get a better idea of what that's going to entail.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's detailed work out in there. Can we do a sidewalk where it does wind in and out a bit among, the larger trees. It would be terrible to have to take those down, Where exactly the road right-of-way is another question. We did our best to estimate based on where where the utility poles are and where the water lines are and where the clear fence lines were for some of the houses. And you can see some places where people clearly have built into the right-of-way, and other places where the right-of-way goes back, obviously, quite a bit. But, those things need to be established.
Okay.
So do I hear, we've got two proposals.
Do you want to do them separately?
I think we could probably do them as one.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion? Ron, you want to make that motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we ask the village administrator to, in conjunction with, with our engineer to draw up a map with proposed pathway options for a walkway that surrounds encompassing the whole parameter of the village. And secondly, a motion, and along with that, a motion to ask the village administrator as well as the village president to engage our neighboring communities in the efforts to see this complete.
Motion Cumbo, do I hear a
I'll
second?
that.
Second Nagy, further discussion?
One question I have, we need to, he said, it suggested about getting Wall Lake schools involved. I had another suggestion, and now my brain was blank. I had a senior moment, okay?
We will still welcome the input whenever you make
I
it.
know what it was. Relative to asking EJ to do this, do we need to approve some kind of dollar amount or something that says there's gonna be maybe some cost involved, even if there's no engineering drawings, or how do we need to approach that, just so
I
we're
think for
funding
now,
this?
for now, let's ask our administrator to discuss it.
I'll
And
discuss it with the engineer.
let's see if there is a cost, that might have to come back to the council.
Okay, that's freebies I like.
I think the drawing would basically be which side of the street would we want it on.
I'll get that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really all we're looking for. But if we have, something, if we have something that has road right-of-way in it too, that would be helpful.
And one other thing that relative was brought up at our meeting on Monday night was the term safety path, okay? As opposed to bike path or walkway or sidewalk. I think Roger Bush brought that up, is use that term safety path. I thought it was.
And I saw a shaking head from our engineer, so let me.
If you recall, the pathway that we put through the village some 20 years ago, that was a multi-jurisdictional pathway.
Okay.
If you identify it as a safety path, now you have some criteria you have to, and some liability in those kind of words. So
Okay, fair enough.
It's just a pathway.
Your insurance carrier is gonna tell you what they want you to call that.
Yes, yes.
Okay, fair
And
enough.
we're going to comply.
Yeah. I would take the recommendation.
So probably we're talking, because, when you go through there, look, it's clear there isn't room for the thing that we would call a bike pathway, which is a really big thing. So, I think if we just call it a pathway, it gives us a lot more flexibility around what we can do to work with established. Okay, any further on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item O, Oakland County Hazard Mitigation Plan. Yeah, why don't we hand it over to our captain? He had a lot of input into this.
What you have in front of you is your portion, or the Village of Wolverine Lakes portion of a larger plan that encompasses all of Oakland County for the safety mitigation. I don't want to go into specifics, obviously just a 300-page document out there if you want to really read it. This is
I emailed it to everyone.
what you have in front of you, I believe, is the Wolverine Lake version that is what affects us. This just has to be put in front of the council for approval of resolution, I believe, to join this, or say we're taking part in this. Doesn't cost anything. We actually will probably end up getting some money and some training out of this, but some funding for certain things, emergency preparedness things. And we've been doing that right along with Oakland County. So this is a formality they've asked us to adopt, just to be a part of the bigger community for the mitigation.
Yep, and
It's pretty cut dry.
yeah, we've been working with them all along on this. We've had our input. I know the print of it came lately, but the pieces that were called out in particular for our community are the dam, of course, and also the fact that we do need, that power outages cause us specific troubles because we are so heavily dependent on wells that need electricity, so.
And that is listed on your resolution right here.
Yeah. And all of the general other ones that affect us, all of them. Do I hear a motion to adopt the resolution as presented? And it's this resolution in your, it's before you.
Second that.
Motion Nedrow, second Scott. Further discussion?
Under the particular section 5.2.62 on page 132, it says the threat of tornado or winter weather and power outages. I mean, that all in the tornado encompasses, severe thunderstorms and wind shear and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know. If it's not, well, it's not a tornado, so.
As long as it's declared, it's covered. So straight line winds, certain things like that.
Yeah.
As long as Oakland County declares it.
As long as they declare a state of emergency
Okay.
from whatever the source is.
Whatever sort, okay, I
It's-
just
it's
didn't know if
the-
we had to be specific, that's all.
No, we don't actually do that. Oakland County Emergency Management takes care of that.
Okay.
And
In reading the 130-plus page, no, I didn't do that, actually. I did notice that some of the communities really throw every possible
well, you
catastrophic
remember a lot of
scenario in
things,
there,
we
where
don't-
we
don't have
didn't.
any, schools, we don't have any Air Force close by, we don't have, a lot of these things. What we do have is our water. We have our dam.
Mhm.
That's a major, our water and our dam is our major threats. If there were such a, they said, okay, brainstorm about this today, terrorists was gonna come to your community, where would they go? They're gonna drain our lake.
Yeah.
Really, I mean. that's
Yeah,
really
we don't have an
not-
industrial zone, we don't have
We
major.
don't have.
No, I realize that.
And that's what they
Recruit some guys, yeah.
We've been doing this for the last 7 years, and they're finally making this formalized so we can actually apply for certain grants to be better prepared in the future. That's what it is now. It's just, we're now formalizing this coalition of communities. That, if we have something that happens to Commerce Township, and we have a backhoe, they need a backhoe, we're gonna take our backhoe. Same way, if something happens here, we're gonna get, different communities, Commerce Township, we'll get Wall Lake, West Bloomfield, whatever it takes to get this done, they're gonna come here. And it's not gonna cost us $500 million to be able to rebuild this dam. It's all gonna be, this is all part of the new.
Yeah.
So there's no advantage for us to be comprehensive and throw every possible scenario into this
No.
thing.
And
We're covered.
again, these are two real main points that we picked out, and I went through this with Chief George when he was here, we've been doing this for 7 years, and I was the point person then, and we really couldn't come up with much more than that at that time, so.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Pending business, I believe, can pend this month, though we may have some action coming on electronic meeting communication. Well, let's see. Update from Captain Ellsworth.
All right, since I didn't have the mic on last time. Since the last meeting that I attended, which was in October, I apologize for missing last month. You've all seen the new Tahoe. It's in service, it's working well. We love that vehicle. We're leaning towards probably, hopefully getting another one next year. We're having some problems with our automobiles, but the cameras are up and working. We're working out some of the bugs. A couple of our older cameras are still out, and it's not cable, it's actual, the cameras themselves. They've been here for a few years, and they're probably going to need to be replaced. I just got the estimate late today in an email, along with replacing a couple of control lines. And the control lines go to the PTZ cameras, the pan, tilt, zoom cameras that we have on the building. Currently, we cannot control them. They're programmed, they swoop, they catch everything, but we can't program them because they're under the old software, under the old system. They're still working, but we can't control them, and that might become an issue eventually. We can replace the lines to them, so we do have control with them, and that's all part of this new quote we just got. Like I say, to replace the existing 2 cameras that we have. and the lines. But I'll get that to Sharon, and we'll go from there. But we do have very good picture of the park and the access and the interior of the building, and I think we're pretty pleased with the way it's turned out so far. Like I say, we're still working out a couple of little bugs, but other than that, I just wanted to give you an update on that. It's been, and I'm looking for wood to knock on, it's been very quiet lately, crime-wise. We're back to full staff, and we're in full mode in training. We're trying to catch up to the state mandated training, because when we were so light staffed, we weren't able to do a lot of that. So we're in full training mode, and we've completed some of that as far as firearms and things like that. Sergeant Cunningham we put on a really good program last week. And other than that, Merry Christmas and have a blessed New Year.
John, I had a question for you. When you were talking about surveillance, the park, are you talking about Claire Miller?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good. So that's functioning.
Yes, sir. And
Great.
after the meeting, if you want a quick run-up to the police department, we can show you the cameras and how they work.
Yeah, I'd like to take a peek at it.
They got it's a great system. You can view it. I don't know how good you're gonna be able to see it because it's at night, but again, if you get a chance, you want to stop by and see it. But I'm not sticking around long, just so you know.
That's good to know.
I can always visit you during the week.
That's right.
Question, Captain, relative to these things record for a week, a month, a year, how long do we keep the recording that it does do?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not time to wait.
That'll be my answer. Yes, we do keep the recording.
Okay, I didn't know if it, like, some of these recording systems, after a week or 2 weeks, they just record over what's there and they just keep on going. I didn't know how our systems were set up.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's the appropriate answer
Yeah.
there.
I got you.
Question to ask in a public meeting.
Yeah. Anything else? Update from the treasurer.
I'm good here, Mr. President, thanks.
Update from the administrator.
I don't have anything to add either, other than the DPW has all the Christmas lights out, if you haven't seen them, and have a Merry Christmas.
All right, council comments. Scott.
Variation, thank you, council, for the approval. I say that on behalf of the water management team, board. And I wish everybody here a Merry Christmas next week, but to
Oh, that's
everybody
right.
out there, Merry Christmas.
Nedrow.
Just happy holidays.
Sinkowitz.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, be safe, and the ice isn't very thick. So
That's for sure.
it won't be too long before we'll start seeing people out there. Be careful.
Gumbo.
Merry Christmas to everyone. That's it for me.
Kaznicki.
Just to update everybody real quick, I think we had a really good turnout with Snacks with Santa last Saturday. It was a very long day, but it was a beautiful day. The sun was out, and I know some of the numbers were floating around, but I think we had about 141 kids and adults around that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so Santa Jim, outstanding. Man, my heart just was fluttering. There was this little boy about 3 years old. He just walked up to him, gave him the biggest hug, and he wouldn't let go, and he wouldn't let go. And Roger Bush was telling me he was talking to one couple that they've been bringing their kids to this event for several years, and those kids think Santa Jim is the big guy. Everybody else they see is just helpers. So it was an outstanding success. Because of that, I mentioned earlier, but I just wanted to mention for those who sometimes pop in, no Park and Rec meeting this month, as a reminder. We will get together in January. We will have a bus ride down to the auto show, Martin Luther King Day. Maybe next year we can get it during the day. But hopefully we'll get. In fact, it was really nice too at Snacks with Santa. There were a couple of sign-up sheets, and we actually got some new residents that wanted to get involved in the community, and they signed their names up. So, another good way every time there's anything like that to get people to sign up.
Opportunity to recruit folks in.
Mhm. Thank you, and ditto here for the holidays for everybody. Be safe. Enjoy your families.
The same way for me. Happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year to everybody, and be safe. stay up to ice as it's till it's hard.
Yes.
All right, and me, well, after berating volunteers and threatening to make them run laps, I'm kind of trying to recruit up a few volunteers for this Saturday. We're, a couple folks in our neighborhood are trying to get together some caroling to go carol some of the folks at the Sunrise facility over on Pontiac Trail. It would be Saturday at 3:30 in the afternoon. We would go, we would sing a few songs in their general community room. Singing skill is absolutely not a requirement of this. I can guarantee that because I'll be one of the singers. And we're just going to go. We're going to carol a little bit. Hopefully, we'll do a few songs. We'll have some song sheets. If you'd be interested in coming along and singing a few Christmas songs, let me know. We're going to have choir practice, as it were, at our house tomorrow night. We'll make sure that voices are lubricated if need be. Hot chocolate is guaranteed. We're looking for kids too, if kids want to come and sing along. So not a big shindig, not all that well organized, but we're gonna go. We're gonna sing a few Christmas songs, and then that'll be it. So let me know if you're interested, and I'll tell you where to be when. And with that, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support to adjourn.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Nedrow, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.